Did you know that growing big, defined shoulders can make your physique look twice as aesthetic? In fact, big shoulders are often associated with a V-shaped look, giving the illusion of a narrower waist. For a long time, no matter how hard I trained, my shoulders refused to grow. And the reason is simple. I didn't train each part of the shoulder properly. I thought the solution was to lift heavier weight or spam lateral raises, but still looked flat. It's not until I fixed a few things that my shoulders exploded. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I did and how you can do it too to finally grow your shoulders. The fix. I always thought that in order to grow your shoulders, I should spam lateral raises and do 5+ sets in each workout. Now, it is in fact true that the side delt plays a crucial role in aesthetics. But as we all know, more isn't necessarily better. In fact, doing too many sets of lateral raises can lead to overtraining, which limits muscle growth. So, not only are you not seeing any gains, but you're also losing gains and energy in the process. So I realized that, like any muscle, in order to increase its size and stimulate growth, we should focus on achieving a big stretch at the bottom of the exercise rather than just lifting the weights up and down. In fact, a study found that training your muscles in a more stretched position can stimulate more growth. So I realized that instead of doing 5 sets of lateral raises with no control, I decrease the weight and do 2 to 3 sets, focusing on a complete stretch at the bottom and a decent pause at the top. And I'll tell you exactly what exercise helped me achieve that stretch in the next step. The part of the shoulder that is responsible for the 3D look is actually the rear delt, and not the side delt. The rear delt, which is often neglected and not trained in most programs, plays a big role in adding width to your shoulders, especially when viewed from the side. It's not until I started to train this muscle very seriously that I saw growth. However, knowing how to best target it and what exercises to do is the secret to achieving results, which you'll talk about in a while. But before that, let's talk about the front delts. I used to do 2+ exercises for my front delts, from shoulder presses to front raise to all that unnecessary exercises. But in reality, I was overtraining the muscle because the front delt is actually trained in most pressing movements like bench press, incline bench, or even dips. So it wouldn't make any sense to train it again and overtrain. Instead, I shifted my focus from the front delts to my side and rear delts, and only then, my shoulders popped and grew way wider. Exercise selection. When choosing the best exercise for rear delts, you should choose the exercise that offers a deep stretch and that allows you to completely isolate the muscle. Now, the reverse fly machine is a good choice, but I feel like the stretch provided is kinda limited and that the traps often become engaged and overtake the delts. Instead, set the cable just above your shoulder and take a step to the side until your rear delt is fully stretched. Then grab the cable and pull, focusing on squeezing the muscle, then control the eccentric with deep stretch. Do each arm separately for more focus. I found this exercise really effective. In fact, after only 4 weeks of switching to this exercise, I found noticeable growth in my rear delts. The dumbbell rear delt fly can be a good alternative if you are limited on time and can't use the cable. Now, how do you achieve a better stretch with lateral raises? Well, you can do this with a cable or a dumbbell, but I prefer the cable. First, set the cable at knee length, then put a cable handle. I personally prefer the V-bar handle as it limits stress on the wrist. Then lean to the side as much as you can to maximize the stretch. Then you lift the weight up and down, focusing on full range of motion and a slow eccentric. Make sure not to pause in the stretched position. Instead, control the eccentric, then go up immediately. The stretch that this exercise provides can significantly increase your shoulder size, making you more aesthetic and masculine. To maximize growth from these exercises, knowing how many reps and sets you should do and at what frequency is essential. That's why I'll talk about that in step 3. Volume and frequency. When it comes to training your shoulders for maximum growth, I realized that heavy weights aren't necessary. Instead, by using a lighter yet challenging weight, you ensure that you perform the exercise effectively and at a higher rep range. Now, of course, the weight have to be challenging to make the stretch more intense, but it doesn't justify ego lifting. Doing these exercises for 10 to 15 reps and for 2 to 3 sets is generally recommended, as this allows for muscle hypertrophy without burning out the muscle. Now, since the rear and side delt are both small muscles, taking not more than 48 hours to fully recover, training them twice a week is a smart approach. Because by training at a higher frequency, your muscles will usually grow faster unless you actually overtrain them. I made a video in which I explained exactly how you can grow a massive triceps and finally achieve that horseshoe look, so make sure to check it out.